from the PGA players still not being told what's exactly going to happen, to these folks potentially losing out on millions of dollars. What's going to happen to the PGA players when the merger is confirmed? The thing is, folks, this was the merger of the century. Really, two enemies who've been at each other's throats for 2 years finally decided to let all the grudges go and call a truce. Except, what I just told you was the extremely short version. What really happened was super messy, and a lot of folks got screwed over. Even after a few weeks of the merger, PGA Tour players still know nothing about the alliance. So while tour officials met with the players, they told them nothing. In fact, most players found out about the alliance at the same time you and I did, and as if that wasn't crazy enough, they got the news from the same source as us too? Yep, Twitter. Rory McIlroy, who's probably got the most to lose because of this deal, canceled his press conference just so he could avoid discussing this merger. Colin Morikawa, an American golfer, dodged questions about the deal too, talking about his For Youth project instead. But all this silence is about to change, and the PGA players might actually get their questions answered. On June 21st, PGA Tour representatives gathered for a meeting with the tour officials. And while they might be talking about a lot of things, the fact of the matter is that the PGA folks have a lot of questions that still haven't been answered and won't be answered for quite some time now. Adam Scott, the chairman of the Player Advisory Council, said that there are still a lot of questions since the players only really have a framework that was announced. Here's what Scott said on the players' behalf. So although that seems fairly simple, I think the deal sounds quite complex, and this could take a long time, and I think hopefully everyone is cooling down. And as things go along, there is transparency to the players and those questions get answered. As far as the guy's own feelings are concerned, he said he definitely has opinions, but he's going to keep it low-key right now and just see how it all plays out at the end. But even without wanting to give his feelings away, he did let people know how disappointed he was. All the loyalty he showed to the tour made him feel as if he made commitments under false pretenses. He says that he's got some emotions, since in the past, it was implied that once you leave the PGA, you can never come back. And that's exactly why so many people let go of hundreds of millions of dollars to just stay at the PGA. But now, with this merger happening, it seems that there's a way back. Even if there's a way back, the problem is that not everyone knows what that way is so far. And the PGA players still don't know if the sacrifices they made count for something or not. Xander Schauffele, the defending champion, has said that all his peers really want is more transparency going forward. That's all. He also talked about how there's little to no information out there, which, just by the way, could be a good thing. You see, folks, there's still some part of the agreement that needs to be written up. Now that the players know for sure that the merger is happening, they can voice their opinions and have a say in how this merger is going to play out. But the point is, everyone wants transparency. And look, if the folks discussing the merger aren't able to give any answers, that means there aren't any. Matt Nismith, an American golfer who was present at the meeting, said that there really wasn't a lot of information shared with the players, and that the players are just going to have to accept the unknowns. He also said that the framework agreement was signed to end the litigation, and that what this agreement really does is open up the possibility for more deals to be made. He also acknowledges that he doesn't know what that looks like, and that he and the other players won't know that for a while. At this point in the video, you're probably just annoyed by hearing the term framework, right? Yeah, so is Joel Dahmen. The American golfer said that he wasn't in the meeting, but he heard that PGA Tour officials just kept using the word framework. The PAC meeting, player meeting, and agent meetings didn't help anyone understand the future of the tour all that well, but it did help cool some emotions, according to Adam Scott. Because here's the thing. There was a players-only meeting hosted by the commissioner of the PGA Tour, Jay Monahan, and that got heated to say the least. Since then, the emotions seem to have cooled down a bit. Despite that, though, Adam says that he and other players can't help but feel that they were left in the dark. And while the frustration on the players' side might be a little bit lower now, the truth is that it won't take much to reignite the fire. A lot of players are furious at everything that happened. One Player Advisory Council member said that the only reason the PGA Tour officials gathered the members to then not provide any information was to give them false confidence and make them feel like they're important. The fact is, the PGA Tour members don't know what's going to happen to them, and neither do they know what's going to happen to the tour. They also don't know what's going to happen to the LIV players. I mean, can these guys rejoin the PGA? Can these guys keep their money? The details of how everything's going to go down haven't been much. But from what's been confirmed, it seems that this agreement was signed to see both organizations combine their commercial businesses, and they're right into a new unnamed for-profit company. So the first thing is, the lawsuits have been dropped, which, as I mentioned earlier, was the real reason this happened. But before this merger, the PGA suspended and fined all the players who signed up for LIV's first season. 48 players took part, and many of the PGA's big names jumped ship. But here's the kicker: 11 players, which included folks like Phil Mickelson and Ian Poulter, not only jumped ship, but they also filed an antitrust lawsuit against the tour. They did that to fight PGA's anti-competitive rules that prevented golfers from playing wherever they'd like to. But the question is, what's going to happen with these 48 players? Because not only did they burn their bridges with the PGA, but they also signed some insanely lucrative deals. Are they going to get paid the same? Will they get penalized? Well, for now, for confidentiality reasons, not a lot is known the contents of the contracts. For the players that signed with LIV, all we know for now is that Phil Mickelson got a $200 million deal, and Dustin Johnson got one for $125 million. We also don't know much about the lengths of the contracts that these players signed with LIV, but the truth is, it's unlikely that the players will be paid the total sum agreed upon, considering that the entire calendar will end up changing and coming to a truce. No matter how difficult was actually the easy bit, the real task for LIV will now be to sort the contracts. Because let's not forget, folks, some players might get a ton of cash if LIV breaks the contracts. But as of right now, the three groups have promised a fair and objective process for the players who'd like to rejoin PGA at the end of the 2023 season. But this then begs the question, what's going to happen to the players on the PGA Tour? I'll be honest here, if there are any losers in this entire deal, it's the tour members. I mean, these guys were guilt-tripped and threatened into not leaving the tour. They were told they'd be traitors if they left for the cash, only for PGA to now happily accept all the cash. I mean, Tiger Woods turned down $800 million to join LIV. He's going to be fine without the money, though. But a player like Ricky Fowler won't. The American golfer turned down $75 million to join LIV just for the PGA, and he's not going to be offered the same amount of money to join LIV now. But there's one piece of good news. These PGA folks will now be playing regularly, and they're going to be competing against the best. Not just that, but the game will now expand outside of the United States, so these folks will be traveling a lot too. And hey, despite the entire controversy of LIV being backed by Saudi funds, the money will make the sport extremely famous, and that's not a bad thing now, is it? Well, there you have it from the PGA Tour. Players potentially losing out on millions of dollars to these folks still not being told what's exactly going to happen. This was everything on what happens to the PGA players when the PGA LIV Alliance begins.